Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Alessandrini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom O'Gorman. Tom, how's it going?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Dude, it was 60 degrees today, and I feel like a new person.
Wait, was it? I didn't even go outside. What the?
It was amazing. It was
Oh,
still, yes, was it gray? Was it windy? Yes, but it was 60 degrees.
mm,
Oh,
spring is
so I'm good.
so
How are you?
close. Spring is so close. I'm doing good. It's a Tuesday, we're recording, and I still have a track hangover from this weekend. Yesterday was rough.
Oh,
Oh, I know. What was
that must
me?
have been really hard.
I drove so much at VIR, my body was
Yeah.
sore.
And then I was tired.
And
All right,
then
so you're still recovering?
yeah, I'm I it was a mix between sitting in like because I was instructing to pay for my pass at VAR uh and the amount of laps I did, I was just I'm just sore. I think I gotta do like those exercises where you get like the band around the neck and you like do some neck flexing because yeah, I feel it.
Yeah. I think I got naturally stronger enough to like when I started to drive actual cars that needed neck strength from working at the kart track and like
Yes,
having the karting be a regular part of my regimen for like physical training.
absolutely.
10 races a week, like 80 minutes in a go-kart a week was excellent for that.
Maybe I need to like go to my favorite local kart track and just be like, "Hey, can I just use you guys as like my workout regimen?" And I put stickers on every car that I drive. Mm,
It's not uncommon for I think we did that for a couple people,
yeah.
but like is if you to me the hardest part, the most important part is proving that you're not losing them. Like understanding the behind the scenes. We could talk about this off there, but like if you
No,
understand the
I think this
economics
would
of how a cart
I
work
think
off.
I think this would be useful for the listeners to hear because
Okay,
this is
so a
part of the
go-kart track,
discussion of trying to get sponsors. Like you have to be valuable to them in some way.
this is just from my experience working at one 10 years ago. But my understanding of just a general operating cost for a go-kart for a race was under $2 for us. It was a gas track that was running ventilation and all this, right? Staffing, all of that's just like the general cost. If you were to put it dollar to dollar to what the cart cost to run for a race, it was like, it's a $20 race and it costs us $2 to run it because there's unscheduled maintenance that comes in and stuff. And there's also on and off hours that are going to be like the prime time. If you take one slot from a Saturday night race where they put 10 to 12 carts out, you've cost a significant amount of money relative to Tuesday afternoon when the carts are sitting there one way or the other, and it really doesn't cost them that much to run that $2 a race when they know you're not going to break anything because you don't suck. You're going to be respectful of the other customers, especially if you like immerse yourself as kind of a customer PR. We had some customers that were like amazing like welcomers to customers.
Yeah.
So they were there doing their races, but they honestly like you would have the personality for this for sure. To just be like a friendly face in the cart track for like brand new customers, some like kind of motorsports curious people. I
Yeah.
think you could build a pretty compelling like here's why I want this.
Yeah.
And then you could maybe like set some ground rules and make sure that you're not costing them money.
Right, exactly. Like I'll show up on the dead hours, like be an ambassador of the place, both while I'm here and
Isn't it
when I'm
like
not here. Well, I kind of already
isn't it
have
like 10
that.
minutes away?
Well, no, so the one that I kind of already have something like that is called high voltage indoor karting. It's not like it's not like official, but Steve, the owner, always helps me out in like some way, like over the last like 10 years, basically. Where like he's like, hey, I want to go do an endurance event, and I'll go do it with Steve. Um, and then he'll like throw a bunch of races on my account because like I should practice up, quote unquote. Right. Like so stuff like
Sure.
that. But like having something more official and then me just being and it sucks. I literally just got a job where I moved away from it. It was that high voltage used to be 3 minutes from where I used to work. And now I work remote. So now I'd have to drive down there. But that's fine. I'll just get an excuse to go down there and get like lunch with my old coworkers and stuff. But
I was
um
gonna say that could be like your 3 times a week lunch routine.
yeah,
How
exactly.
cool would that be?
Well, they don't open till like 3, so but yeah, you roll your eyes, but okay, I could have a 3
Details.
o'clock lunch. I could have a 3 o'clock lunch. That's totally possible. But, something more formalized, and then I make it a point to get out there, even if it's just for working out, just to get, like, my neck, like, used up. I think that would actually be pretty useful. I don't think I don't think, like, my physical body prevented me from setting any laps that I wanted to, mostly because, guys, I don't know how many of you have done a chin track day, but they load the cars on the track. Getting a clean lap this weekend was basically impossible. And look, guys, if you're listening to this and you're part of Chin, I think you guys run a great event. It's awesome. I think your instructor program is really solid. It's like on par with auto interest, which I think is like among one of the best. Uh, but there's just way too many cars on track, like way too many. But I don't know, whatever. You guys sold it out, so your customers must be happy. So what the hell do I know?
Yeah.
But, like, it to me, like, when I just wanna set, like, a clean lap and I think this is also a GT3 RS problem, is because you need so much open track to actually set a clean lap in a car that's that fast. So,
Yeah.
it's probably n this DJ problem probably isn't much of a problem.
First world problem for sure,
This
but
is a very
it
first world.
kinda hits on the topic a couple weeks ago where we were talking about, like, the difference between the track day driver and the competitive driver,
Yeah.
and how difficult it can be when they're crossing paths. I think the real hack, there's a group in Texas I know that does this. I think there's some groups in Florida that do this too. They all have obviously they have money, so they have the Porsches and the Corvettes and the whatever, and they get the group together and they buy out the group. Even though there's only 12 of them, they buy out the entire 40 car group or whatever. They just say
Oh.
like, "What's it cost?" And then they pay a lot more, but then they're only on track for their group with their friends.
You know, remember
That's probably not realistic to most people listening to this podcast.
yeah, remember that
Unfortunately, sorry guys.
sorry. Not and if it is relevant to you, hi. Bring us with.
If it yeah, right.
Um, that remember, when we were having that conversation, I was also talking about, like, it would be cool if instead of these, like, 40-minute long sessions, they, like, split it up so, like, there was just less cars on track and because like, who's out there, like, burning the car down for 40 minutes? The
Yeah.
the newbie I had, it was his 3rd time on a racetrack this weekend, and he was so excited. I was so excited that he was excited. Um, his name was Eli. I don't know if he'll listen to this. I don't think I ever told him I had a podcast, but, um, uh, he he was so excited. We'd be, like, halfway through the session, and he goes, "Oh, how much time do we have left?" And I'd be like, I think we still got, like, 20 minutes." And he would literally go, "Oh, yes, I love this. This is so cool." And then, like, as we're going down the straightaway, and then it's like, he was so pumped for the 40-minute session. So, Tom, I don't understand I don't think I live in the brain of, like, the just starting the drive on a racetrack driver. I think, like, the amount he was pumped on it, I'm like, "All right, there is absolutely an audience for this," and,
Yep.
like, I'm not it.
When I worked track night and the energy of the novice group, I was for the first what did I do it for? Like 5 or 6 5 years? About 5 years. The the first 2, I wasn't managing events, I was, like, basically primarily on novice group, and dude, the energy, especially at that early stage when we were, like, figuring it out, of them coming off track, even though it was, like, their first session, unsupervised, just from the pit lane, 20 minutes, usually, like, 10 minutes of kind of devolving into chaos towards the end until we,
Yeah.
like, fix it for the second one. It didn't matter. They were so freaking stoked to be on racetrack and like the energy after that first debrief or at that first debrief that I found that infectious for a long time.
Uh, yeah, dude, that was infectious to me, and it actually kinda made me think about the topic this week, but I'm not done talking about this weekend yet. But that's part
Drove cool
of
cars.
what's that?
You drove cool cars. I
I
want to hear
drove
about that
very cool
first.
cars. So me and Peter were, practicing for, 1 lap, and we tried out the ECSs, which, Peter was kind enough to entertain the possibility of running the ECSs, so we were running big ECSs instead of little Bridgestones, and they were a little
Mhm.
slower, but both Peter and I agreed that if it looks like there's any rain in the forecast, we just run the ECSs because they were a little slower, but not that much slower, and the drivability of them was, like, super easy. So we'll run the big 300 treadwear tires. They're much larger, and for some reason, the balance of the car was better too. I'd like to try the 265 Bridgestones up front rather than the 255s because I know, like, that would still work, but regardless, the balance of the car to me was, better, and, um, uh, and if it rains, like, we're fine. And they, like, wore, like, iron, so the Bridgestones were faster. I just wish Bridgestone had, like, big big boy size tires for the cars, even if it's still just 19 inches. But like if they had like a 345 on the rear and then like a 275 in the front, or they do have a 275, but really they just need that like that 325 or 345 or something like bigger than a
Right.
305. So I don't know if that's like coming down the chain or something, but if it is
I
like
don't either. I've never really asked them development-wise that question. The only thing I can assume is that the product was originated from the Japanese market, and I'm assuming that just as a assumption of, like, cliches that they probably don't need nearly the size tires for a lot of the motorsports and, like, automotive applications over there.
yeah, it's
Just
probably
a guess, I don't know.
it's probably like a cost of tooling or something as well. Like it's like, okay, well, we can make the 305s with our current tooling, but if we wanted to make any bigger size than this, we'd literally have to dump like $1 million into
Yeah,
like the tooling to make this. And we've literally ran the numbers, it will never pay for itself. So like it's just not worth it to have it.
yeah, versus, like, BFG, byproduct of, like, market and all this other stuff, probably makes way more sense for them to make, like, a 245 or 345.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
I don't know. That's all just assumptions, but so that's good. I mean, did you agree that the so I we Salil and I ran that Conti on the Porsche the last 2 years, and I think it's the car. I think it's probably the choice for one lap anyway. I'd be curious to see where you guys end up,
it
but
depends.
it's really
It if it looks like it's gonna rain at all, which in the Midwest in May, like it's probably gonna rain, so we'll probably be on those. If it looks like it's gonna be as dry as it was last year, then we'll just run the Bridgestones because they were relatively easy to drive on and they were really fast. So, and they seem like they'll because we did. I think me and Peter added up the laps at Road Atlanta. We did like 78 laps on them throughout the weekend, and there was still tire
ooh,
left.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's really good. One lap's only 36 laps, I think,
yeah, and then the transits.
and then obviously, yeah, but that's
Yeah,
way less. It's mostly that 3 flash heat
yep,
push for a hot lap
yep.
cycle that it has to survive.
So
That's promising. Cool.
yeah, so I think it will work. That would be really cool. And we're both like, there was a bunch of people from One Lap there. They would come on because Peter posted in the Discord. So people from One Lap were coming up and kind of seeing how we're doing and like trying to like get what do the lap times look like and I never got a clean lap. Um and but my optimal was a 58 1 59 1. It was sub 2 minute was the optimal. But I never really got a clean lap to like be able to put one together. So, but I feel like that would have been good time. But Peter's actually doing VIR, assuming it doesn't rain, and he did a 202, which it's not that far off of me. So go Peter, like that's Peter is absolutely killing it. Uh, just like a couple tweaks here and there with like how he was approaching stuff, like found huge time at VIR, which is kind of what we were hoping. That's why we thought maybe Peter will drive VIR, especially like if we can do some recon on it, because anybody who hasn't been there, it's kind of a little bit of an intimidating racetrack if you haven't been there before. It would be a very tough one to just show up and do. Um, so
Yeah.
Peter seeing it, us talking about it, finding like and like Tom's pointed out before on the podcast with VAR, it's like a couple sections that lead onto huge straight. So if like you nail those couple sections, then like your lap time is just inherently good. Even if everything in between those sections like isn't optimal, you don't bleed time because it's such a power track. And newsflash, GT3RS has power.
Did you drive the 992 you mentioned last week?
I did. It had it had a bunch of arrow on it, Tom. Uh like I talked about at, Sebring, it was bonkers, absolutely bonkers through the upper S's. It was on 300 treadwears as well, and my min speed was 134 just over the first, crest. Like, over the left-hand curbing, I was still doing 140. So and I just brushed the brakes or lifted or whatever I needed to do, just to get the angle to get over the crest. It felt
Wait, what? You went through South Bend at 140, is that what you mean?
no, 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 no. No, I didn't go I
Okay,
was
re-say what you said.
the first right-hander on the upper S's over that curbing was
Yeah,
was 133, which felt bonkers.
okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so the arrow is, like, really effective. Because I was driving it in the RS, which has aero, but not as much as the 992 with the package on it. And
Yeah.
it felt good. In the FRS, I was not going nearly that speed, and I would actually get air over that crest. So like the aero actually matters a lot for those upper S's. Uh,
Yeah.
so I can't imagine driving a car without any aero, like at any kind of speed through those S's. It would be super rowdy. But this is, I think, my fourth time at VAR, and I feel like I finally understand the intricacies of how to really make time in the upper S's and like what matters. And it's really just like your angle. It's the angle you can create between the left hander and the first right hander, which is that crest that I'm talking about. As long as you get
Yep.
whatever angle that is in the space that you're allotted, however fast you're going literally doesn't matter.
Yeah, I had that epiphany, one of the early times I went. I've only driven low speed cars at VIR, the fastest of which was a TCR car, which is it does like a 157, so it was doing the same lap times as you, but with 300 horsepower, so it's
Yeah.
doing it completely different,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the S's are literally like a blind person could do it, but I was teamed with Kenton already at that race, and the S's were one of the only sections he was faster than me. I was like, "What? We're going this like, it's flat out, whatever." And we looked
Yeah.
at the video, and I was driving past the first apex of the very first left at the very bottom of the upper S's, if you're with us, and then turning back to the right. So I was turning more for each one
Yeah.
as you're going faster,
He's
and
just
he
straight
was
lined
coming
it.
in and backsiding the first one using the space you talked about,
Yep.
and then straightening out throughout the rest, which is extra ironic because I taught him how to slalom better when we autocrossed together. So I was literally doing his mistake of like trying to make everything kind of even and straight. Um, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That is a big like, oh, because I go faster and each one's tighter. If I set up early when I'm doing literally nothing, it helps a lot. You read
uh,
that question?
what from Bubsby or
Yeah.
Busby? I don't know how to read. So Matt Busby, he asks, how has that relationship developed over time? He's talking about me and Peter. I only ask because, in my experience, a long term relationship based on comparing performance often gets weird. With Peter, I mean, I'm curious what you mean by that. Maybe like, was there like some ego involved or whatever? Because Peter's one of the few like moderately fast drivers that I've ever came across that literally has zero ego. I don't think I've seen Peter like show an ego once. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that relationship can work as long as there's no hurt feelings.
I think it's different, Matt, because one lap is very much a like same team kind of thing. So even if you're working together to do better, you're not really comparing. But I've had this experience with autocross co-drives and maybe a little bit within the Honda realm. Like when we were all driving the same cars, but I was kind of the only Honda guy. There was maybe a little bit of that, but I think the competition aspect of one lap feels so different all the time, even if
Yeah.
you're just like practicing with your teammate.
Yeah, but yeah, also like me and Peter are never competing against each other because we're just in it
Right.
together. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So maybe if like me and Tom were doing one lap and I was like, I don't want to be seen as like the slow person on the team. But that would be my ego getting in the way, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that is all it is.
Yeah, that's all that would
And I've
be.
been on both sides of that for sure. So yeah, I see exactly why you guys are where you are from what I know of one lap, but
Yeah. That's
an
interesting.
interesting question.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That Matt, if you've never listened, episode maybe like 4 or 5 or 6 is titled "Competing with Your Friends." If you want to hear a conversation about us, specifically from like the lens of racing GLTC together and all the sim racing and all the stuff when we're literally all friends playing the same thing.
But like we all really want to win. It is a
Yeah, it
little
can
bit
get
of
a
a
little
conflict.
complicated.
Yeah, it does get a little complicated because sometimes sometimes you want to win more than you want your friend to be happy. So it's like, yeah.
Well, and also people have different personalities in competition and not. And I would
Oh,
argue the one you
absolutely.
are in competition is probably your most natural self, but like, it's
Really?
maybe not always, like, the person you would wanna be. That's from my case anyway. I'm
Yeah.
not always the cleanest, squeakiest, like, friendliest competitor.
I feel
I
like
struggle with that.
like peak competitive DJs like it's like DJ's most primal version. Like if we were
Yeah.
fighting for food scraps, that's like competitive DJ. Um But then, since I live in a civilized, place and, I don't have to fight for food scraps, then I can behave as a civilized human. Yeah. Um, okay, so anyways, I had a blast this weekend. My student, uh, 'cause, I don't expect Peter to, buy me a track pass. I mean, the guy's literally giving me a free race car and GT3 RS rides, and I can't afford it. So I also instruct when I go to, these events. And I had a student, his name was Eli. He may or may not ever listen to this podcast, but he had a Cayman that was new to him, and it was, like, all track prepped. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful car. I kept teasing with him that because he was kinda tall, I was teasing him that, he should get a Camaro, and I'll take the Cayman off his hands. 'Cause it was an awesome car. I was thinking, "Man, I kinda need one of these," but, uh, it was fun watching somebody without that much driving experience try to take in all the information he was trying to take in, because VIR does it is kind of like a big boy track, so there is a lot to take in, and I I was fascinated watching Eli, like, be at capacity with bandwidth, and then what mistakes would come out with that. And I would never let him get into trouble, but I was like feeling like a scientist with like a lab coat, kind of like sitting in the right seat, like really trying to digest what this is like for somebody who is brand new and trying to remember back to when I was brand new at, driving on track and autocross or sim racing and how my bandwidth was like super limited and taken up. And then thinking about all like these bad habits that I had to either remove or good habits that I had to replace those with, like we talked about last week with the habits. And essentially, what a habit is a subconscious program, right? And so, just with all these conversations that we've had on the podcast, and me and Tom off the podcast and with other people, I was thinking while driving home. Oh, Tom, is there anything about the weekend that you wanted to talk about?
Um, no, I had a really wholesome week. It was very wholesome, I guess. I went and saw my family and had a family party with my mom's side, which was like our belated Christmas party basically because all of us couldn't get in the same place at once. And then the next day I went and visited my brother with his daughter. He's on paternity leave, so I'm trying to like visit them more especially.
Yeah.
Um I'm kinda smitten with my niece. I was prepared for this. I really she's
Right?
so cute, and she smiles every time she looks at me, and I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be so fun to watch you grow up."
Isn't it?
And
That's how
then
that's how I feel
I
with my nieces and, nephews is that it's like, "Oh my god," and uh, your niece is a a infant, right?
4 months, yeah.
Yeah, wait till they start having, like, an opinion of you and you get undeserved love. You're just like, "What? I don't deserve any of this.
Yeah,
This is amazing."
right. Yeah, so that was really cool, and then I also read my grandpa's book. You know Grandpa John from the O'Gorman side who's been to the races?
Yep.
He follows you on he follows every literally, if you've ever been on Facebook, he already knows who you are, what you've driven, how you know me, how we might know each other. Like, he's amazing. And he's been following my racing stuff, but he also wrote a book from his like, he wanted it to be like an autobiographical memoir that was telling his story of growing up in Ireland. He was born in 1937 or 39, I forget. 9, I think. And then moved here in 1947. So he like grew up World War II, but in Ireland and then came here. It was just like really fun to read the book. And I used to think I hated reading, but now I'm on a little kick. So I picked it up and I was like
I'm on a
really glad
little
that I did.
kick.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, that was like the highlights of my week,
Do you
all
think
family stuff.
do you think somebody outside of your family would enjoy the book?
I think so. I mean, it was really eye-opening because he grew up in a small enough town that was like no running water, no electricity. While he was there, he became like the monitor of the younger kids while he was at school while also learning.
Yeah.
But then when he came here, he's like, "Oh, I learned so much more than any American kid. I'm already ahead." So he like moved ahead in high school because he
Oh,
was so
okay.
far up in education. And I don't know, like there's just really cool stories to paint a picture of. At least I hope to go there someday.
Yeah.
Um, but you'd have to be interested in like a little bit of autobiographical storytelling and
Yeah. how
Like, there's a lot of just, like, listing names, and this is who this person is related to, and da 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 da. So there's maybe sections that aren't as, like, stranger friendly.
yeah, gotcha. So did your grandpa, like, write that, like, for the family, basically?
Basically, yeah, he's like, I've always wanted to do this. He's always been a writer, and he's always been fascinated with documenting stuff, so he's been, like my dad's going through all of his old photos, and he's got, like, almost 10,000 slides, I think, because he had a slide camera.
Yeah.
You know how that used to work?
No.
So you had to put a slide in the camera, and it made, I guess, some sort of impression, and then you could put the slides in the projector and then project them up,
Okay,
and that's how they would,
I've
like,
seen
keep
that, like, in
photos.
old-timey movies.
Yeah, so he's got, like, thousands and thousands and thousands of those of all of their time growing up because he got a camera early on, um, and was just, like, interested in doing all this stuff. So, yeah, it's, like, dedicated to us in the beginning, and it just says that, so that my story's told, and then maybe my family will continue to tell theirs.
Cool.
It's like, "Oh, this is cool."
Oh, when's Tom O'Gorman's book coming out?
I don't know, my grandma also has one because my mom did one of
This is
those,
just an
like,
O'Gorman
services.
thing.
Well, there's a service where you can, like they'll give you all the prompts, and then you kinda, like, interview the person who wants to, quote, unquote, "write the book."
Yeah?
It's like a family generational thing. She did that with her mom. So it's a little bit more of like a Q and A, like, "Tell us about this." But my grandpa was, like, completely unprovoked, just, "I wanna tell my story."
I wanted to do, like, an uncensored version of that with my dad, and he said, I'm not gonna record that for the podcast," and I was like, "Come on, that would be so cool." Remember we were talking about that as, like, an episode idea?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted, like,
That would be interesting.
yeah, I wanted, like, completely uncensored, like, the audio will live forever kinda thing.
Mhm. Dadcast?
Yeah,
Someday.
maybe when my dad's older and he has nothing to lose.
Or we'll do it with my dad first, because my dad's fine with hamming it up on a podcast, and then when he hears what I do, he'll be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
yeah.
do that."
Yeah, maybe.
So, yeah, my week was good. Very, very wholesome and family friendly.
Nice.
Family full friendly.
That does sound nice.
Yeah, but okay, so you're back to your
Okay.
thought, you're driving home.
So I'm driving home and I'm thinking about, like, this blank slate driver that doesn't have any habits literally at all, and you're trying to build this person into a race car driver or, like, the best driver possible, right? And right off the rip, there was somebody in the podcast Discord. By the way, we have a Discord. Over 500 people are in the Discord. You can come hang out with the community, where you ask questions like this person did. And I believe their name is Randy. They have a screen name on here, but I believe their name is Randy. Um, and they were wondering, is there a different roadmap for the best driver versus the best racer? Which I thought might be kind of an interesting way to open up the topic. So it kind of sets the stage for, like, what exactly are we talking about? Like, when we say best, what do we mean?
I have one more stipulation.
Okay, what's that?
Are we trying to create the best driver that we can be regardless of use, or are we creating, like, a driver who's gonna make a career out of driving? Does off-track stuff count
Ooh,
in that sense of, like, business? Because we know off-track counts for, like, mental and all that, we'll get there, but
I
some
guess.
of the things I thought of to be honest, when you asked me this question, a lot of the things I pulled from were things that have happened to me and things that I take as a positive experience,
Yeah.
and one of them was, like, should I give any am I giving this person advice on becoming a race car driver with unlimited money, or am I building the best driver that I can with unlimited money?
So the premise I
Do you know the
sent.
difference?
Yeah, hold on. I wanna say how I worded it to you earlier today. So when I was selling you on it is, um, I was saying, I was kind of thinking about what if we were to build the perfect driver from the ground up, what that would look like, what order you would teach the things, how you would avoid building bad habits, what would the roadmap look like? You'd have unlimited resources and unlimited free time, like the driver would. Um, uh, we would guide this blank slate through their motorsports journey. So, like, what approach would you take on that? So
Yep.
that's kind of like the background of, like, what what would you do? So I didn't think about all the stuff off the track. I was thinking about just turning into the most Slayer driver possible. Uh, to
Well, I'll flick those in there when they apply, because
Yeah,
maybe
because I think
we
those do
like quick
apply.
piece of
You know, when I first started driving, uh, I was, and I probably still am, probably to my own detriment, but I'm 100% focused on just the driving and not really that much stuff off of the track. I guess this podcast is stuff that's off the track, right? Uh, but I do think that the stuff off the track is almost just as important, and probably now with, like, the social media, like, landscape, it's probably even more important if you actually wanna be a race car driver, like, for a living. Uh, then are you okay, Tom? It looks like you're dying over there.
I am.
Okay.
Someone launched a joke grenade in the chat.
Oh.
It says it says abandon the driver at a gas station, and it took me too long to get it.
Oh, because that's a Max Verstappen thing, right?
Ah, poor guy. Anyway,
I don't
sorry.
know the story behind that. Can somebody type out the story in there? Because I just know that that's a meme that gets brought up for like Max Verstappen got ditched at a gas station by his dad. It's like Ito says there is no story. Apparently that's a story. So what? Did he lose like a kart race or something? He didn't win. Okay, that's what Ito's saying. So yep. Okay, so he lost like a kart race and his dad left him at the game. That does sound kind of brutal, doesn't it?
Jesus. Damn, Daniel. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry. I got sidetracked and laughed too hard.
I don't even remember what I was talking about, but yeah. So
When you started driving,
oh yeah.
you focused.
So the off the track stuff is probably just as important, if not more important, than to make a career with the driving. I think the way I was focusing on this was just like to make the fastest driver possible. And what made me think about this is I was trying to guide Eli, the novice student, this weekend because he was telling me that he wasn't sure if he was going to keep doing this, and he was kind of like he kind of like signed up for this event to like wonder if he was going to do it. And this was just his like third time on a racetrack, and I was trying to like set his expectations of what this actually looks like what getting good at this thing looks like, and if that appeals to him, like go after it. And during that, there was like I remember I like laid out like the roadmap to him, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Tom. But I laid out a roadmap to him that because one thing that we were focusing on was getting into the brakes like you would on a racetrack and not like you would on a street. So that was like a bad habit that we had to get rid of. He would softly get into the brakes and then like push them harder, harder, and harder, harder as we were like barreling into the corner, right? So there was no consistency on the brakes there. So we couldn't even pick references to brake at with any kind of like consistent output from that because the way we were getting in the brakes wasn't consistent. And I explained that to him and he knew what I was talking about. But the muscle memory of doing it wrong would keep coming back. And it was causing us to like really not be able to focus on like the next things. And so during this, I was explaining to him that we need to build the way you get into the breaks as like a subconscious executable. It needs to be a habit that this is just the way we get into the breaks because right now he's having to use so much frontal cortex into concentrating on that that we're losing track of all the other things. And that kind of made me think about like the act of actually getting good at driving is just turning all these things that once upon a time we had to think about and we had to concentrate on, and you're turning all of those things into things that we no longer concentrate. It's just something that we do. And so I was explaining to him that you're going to turn this thing into a subconscious executable. And then you're going to take the next thing and you're going to turn that into a subconscious executable. And you're just going to keep doing this. And all these like subconscious executables are going to start stacking up. But the process of doing that never actually changes. You're taking the thing, your lowest hanging fruit, the thing that's keeping you from setting a lap time or doing something successfully on a racetrack, and you're just turning that into like another subconscious executable, and then you can focus on the next one. And that's what the journey looks like. So if building habits that gives you more mental space and bandwidth sounds like something that would be appealing to you, then I think you'll like this motorsports thing. Is basically what I told him. And I've never laid it out like that before, but that's 100% what this is. So with that in mind, first off, Tom, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I have one stipulation I wanted to say first, and then we can go. I
Okay.
think everything that we talk about, I think it's important to acknowledge that no matter what, while everybody can become excellent at this and can always become better at this, it's like an infinite curve. there is an amount of time that it will take each individual to do it,
Yes.
and acknowledging that it takes the time that it takes is basically like you have to meet that at the door, or you're gonna like fall into it later. But if you can just like, I know this is gonna take the time it takes, and then focus on the things that eliminate how, not eliminate, but shorten the curve, you know, take the amount of time down, then you're working in that like legitimate space that I think makes or breaks your performance. And then I have a question. Are we building wait, has the driver, well, there's maybe 2 conversations. Is the driver driven before? Like, can they drive, do they drive on the street? Have they driven anything before? Or have they never driven before? Because I have, like, a different starting point for both.
Ooh, that's kinda interesting.
And this is because
I'm
of my lived
curious.
experience. I think I would repeat the way I started
Yeah,
if I could.
I almost think it's a benefit to start before you actually drive on the road.
Yep, and if you haven't, honestly, like, driving on the road at the most basic level of, like, never even been intrigued by a back road, I would still say is, like, a non-driver. But for that person, I would start with simulators, and I would start with, like, really encouraging self-exploration to, like, play with the ghosts, play with the types of cars you're interested in. Because if you're interested in driving, you're interested in that to a level.
Yeah.
And then if you've never done it before, the sim's gonna feel really malleable and really, like, playgroundy. That's what I did, and I think it benefited me, like, so exponentially more than I could even realize at the time.
Yeah,
But it built
and
in.
and you get that
Go ahead.
instantaneous feedback that the sim would give you with, like, the lap times and the like, that instantaneous feedback
Yep.
is important.
And this, obviously, this is probably not very helpful because most people who have found this podcast are already doing this. But anyway, to say, if I was starting Mr. Miyagi as, you know, I'm Mr. Miyagi, the driver coach, and then like blank slate McGee shows up and I get to start for completely blank slate, that's what I would do. And I would also make sure that there's lots of competition built into that environment and
Yep.
lots of like check-ins from me. But like I think the self-exploration is unmatchable. If you've never driven before, you just give them like the little sandbox to play in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then if they have driven before, I have a totally different answer. But does
Ooh.
that make you think of anything?
No, I no, I agree with everything you just said. I'm curious because okay, so the premise is if they have driven before, there's a good chance that they've built bad habits that would need to, and like we discussed in our habit discussion the week previous, a bad habit just it's always gonna kinda live there. It's never gonna go away. So you have to either disrupt the cue, or the reward of however that bad habit formed, um, or develop the cue to start the good habit action or routine. So, with that in mind, what would your approach different be with the word salad? What how would your approach differ if the which is probably more the case is if the driver has driven on the street and has bad habits.
Like, and I have a, yeah, I have a motorsports interest and I'm an automotive headed person that can drive their car, right? Okay.
Yep,
So that
quote
person,
unquote.
I think a racetrack is the worst learning environment for grip driving.
I agree.
I kind of realize this like firmly when I put these on paper, but I would put that person, okay, first off, for both of these scenarios, I would almost put in some sort of like Gran Turismo style competence scale where like, you know, how in Gran Turismo you could get through the game with bronze licenses, but if you actually got the silver and got the gold's like actually really hard to get.
Yeah.
So you had to be pretty freaking good at the game to get the gold. Like that's the kind of check-in I mean in this, in the sense of like there needs to be competition built in. There needs to be a level of competence that sort of acts as a test regularly to make the person want to do better, but also like they can't get too far while still sucking. So, all that said, I would put them in like autocross environments and drift training for as long as it took for them to like at least have the car control competence that their bandwidth is already basically at idle when we go on a racetrack.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
this is again a person with unlimited money and unlimited time. So this is an extreme situation, but those, and I picked those two because those teach you to drive the weight of the car and the grip of the car rather than on a racetrack. I think people don't learn to drive the weight very well because things happen so much more slowly and expanded versus like autocrossing and even just like doing a figure eight donut. You learn to drive the weight of the car because you have to like throw the hip from side to
Mhm.
side and get it around the cone or whatever.
Yeah, you're manipulating the
I would start
weight.
there.
You're manipulating the weight of the car to influence the behavior of the car, and, like, once that clicks at some point, then so much more bandwidth is opened up to do everything else.
Exactly, because then you're proactively driving the weight and the grip of the car all the time at a much lower idle bandwidth. Then we can take that to the next, sample the next thing, which is probably a racetrack, but it could be a dirt trail, or it could be an ice race, or it could be a this or that. Um, but yeah, for a driver, I would start there. What do you think?
No, I agree with that. I think the main takeaway here is that the driver that's gonna be successful is doing this often enough that they're actually gonna be able to implement these, these tasks into the subconscious
Yeah.
executables. Like, that's the important thing. If they're only doing, driving the car once a month, and then the rest of the time they're just driving to work, we're really not ironing out these bad habits and instilling these, like, racetrack habits.
I think if you're a driver that practically can't do more than what we just said, maybe once a month competition or outlet or track day, whatever, that's where the street driving techniques that we've talked about in past episodes, like forcing good visual habits, good hand habits,
Hands, yep.
like I literally only drive on the street basically with threshold braking. I don't really brake like a normal person.
Now, that doesn't mean Tom's
If I
braking at 80% up to the stoplight. It's
Correct. It just means my input at the pedal is whatever pressure I need to start and it comes away.
so
I
I
would be like, if the person can only go to a racetrack once a month, okay, I'm gonna ride with you to work every day. I'm gonna pick your driving apart to pieces. You're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
wanna go to
yeah.
work to go
You're
into
not
work
gonna
because I'm
wanna
gonna
go
make you hate your drive there.
to.
But it's not because 'cause you're a bad driver. We're just gonna we're gonna like transfer all of your habits to this style of driving.
Yeah. And yeah, and then, like, actively work on the street to build, like, additional bandwidth, right? So we don't have to
Yep.
waste our time focusing on where our hands are on the wheel when we're, like, competing or we're, like, trying to focus on other stuff, because we can work on that whenever. Honestly, the best thing for that kinda stuff, though, is sim racing. So, because okay, unlimited time, unlimited resources, you're just gonna put the guy in a real or the person in a real car, right?
No, I'm not. That's what we're doing right now. You're
Unlimited
you're describing real life, but, I wanna put the contrast out there for, like, if you had the time and you had the runway, let's,
yeah,
like, actually do the right thing. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
that's you're fine. So what I'm saying is, like, unlimited resources and limited time, you would just have that person in a car like, literally as much as their body can, like, take it, right? Like, if the number 1 goal was for them to be the best driver possible. Thing
Yeah.
is a lot of people don't have unlimited resources, and they have limited time. So I think sim racing is probably the best way to build this list of subconscious executables. You can do the hand thing. You can work on the eyes thing to an extent. Especially VR is probably easier to, like, really work on the eyes thing. But you can get, like, the muscle memory down of, like, where your eyes go in the cadence of, like, a corner. Um,
Yep.
the weight you there is weight to manipulate in sim racing. You might not feel it 100%, uh, but that's for somebody who doesn't have unlimited resources. I I agree, Tom, that I think having them start out in autocross, even with unlimited resources, would probably be the move, because the speed on the racetrack takes up bandwidth because there's all these what ifs that are, like, trickling through their heads. But if you can just get them to focus on the driving, like, even a skid pad would be like wonders. Imagine taking somebody who's
Yep.
never driven before, and you just take them out on a skid pad and you have them be on throttle, and then you just have them lift, and, like, the way the nose will carve in, and then you have them, like, lift and, like, dab the brakes and how much more the nose carves in, and you just get them used to that. Like, you get that single part of driving, which is manipulating the weight, you, like, make that into a condensed thing where they don't have to think about that anymore because they
Yep.
isolated it down. Just like if you're doing a bicep, you're just or like a curl, you're just working on the bicep. But if you do a pull up, you're working on so many other muscles other than just the bicep. But if the bicep's the only
Right.
muscle you're trying to work, then you just do a curl, right?
And that's how you get guns like these.
Oh shit, Tom pulled out the guns.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, you're right. I think so. I would start, and to me, that is the foundational thing that not most people, but people miss most. that gets you the farthest. And you don't have to go to auto like I wish that I'd be really like excited to see a school that did a little bit more of this foundational stuff, like foundational playground sandbox style. Like honestly, this SCCA starting line school where they start with the oval and the skid, the slalom,
Yeah.
and it's just like slalom, 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 slalom for a half hour, and then you do like an oval to learn that kind of rolling the weight around the edge of the car.
Yep.
Like doing a multiple days of that
We
until it's like rote
we
would be so powerful.
we call it like a foundational clinic camp or something like that.
Something.
Driving Foundations summer camp.
I think every organization that has a racetrack rented that has the space to do that should be setting that up. I think Auto Interest does a pretty good job with having that car control thing at Mid Ohio.
Yeah.
They do that at other tracks too, but having it be like a foundational structure to me is so important. Okay, I have two other things or two things on like the next step
Okay.
that are kind of an off the track environment thing that I would do. I would expose this person, my blank slate McGee, to a regular exposure to the true scale competition, but not too deep too fast. And by true scale competition, I mean autocross is the spec classes, whatever spec classes is, really, really deep talent classes. Exposure to that, but not like bury them alive in that. And I would also expose this person to regular opportunities for success in competition
Okay.
where even if it's a little bit of a lighter competition, maybe it's also an opportunity to drive something new. Just like give them a chance to and the reason I say this is as I think back at my driving, for example, the first opportunity that I got that fits in this category was a Corvette. And I don't know that I had a particularly excellent event, but I ended up going to a pro solo and winning. And it was like a big Hoosiers C5 Corvette and that kind of like success, even if it wasn't I think that wasn't a pretty competitive event actually. But a better example maybe is the first time I drove like I can't even think of it. I'm losing all my examples.
You're fine. I I
You
I
know what
know
I'm
I
saying
know
though?
totally
Like
where you're going with this. It's
yeah,
like
yeah, go.
for example, like local autocross regions will have like their pro class. And there was a discussion in a group chat that I was in, and I thought like this was actually pretty compelling, and it kind of fits with what you're saying because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to crush the spirit of somebody who's on like the they're still a tadpole on their like motorsports journey, right? You don't want their
Yeah.
spirit to get crushed because as long if they're having fun and their spirit is ringing high, then they're more likely and more they have more available uh capacity of experiencing the joy and uh, everything that comes with learning to go faster and learning to start functioning within this space of motorsports, right? So even like a local region having a pro class where all the really fast people they can just play against each other. But then that one person that showed up in their WRX that they saved up for and they're super happy with it and they go in D Street, which is totally not the car to have in D Street, but oh, I was so close to the podium or oh, I got third place and I got a little foam cone or something like that. That little stuff that adds to the spirit of these
Yep.
these little tadpoles trying to find their way into the motorsports journey. So, with your blank slate human, what you're saying is that you wouldn't just crush them into oblivion all the time. You'd give them
Wouldn't leave them at the gas station. No.
yeah, you wouldn't leave them at the gas station because statistically that
Brutal.
probably won't work out that well. Um, yeah, at least over most humans. Uh, you would trickle in wins to show them like the thing that they should be hungry for, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I
And even
like that.
even if that means lowering the bar of competition by going to a slightly less competitive space, whatever it is, I know that that was massively valuable for me because I got to like dabble in that opportunity for competition early enough that I got that taste and I got that like drive so that when I got into the deep end of stuff, I would say my first exposure to the deep end was in 2010 through 2012, the autocross class called STS, which was CRXs and Miatas at the time, like
Yeah.
early 90s cars. It just like exploded and there were 10 of us that could win nationals and it was like one of the hardest competition walls I'd met at the time. And I think if I'd been thrown into that environment by being 3 years later to motorsports and just meeting it there, I would have been more discouraged. I know for a fact because I tried to buy one of these cars and I sold it because I couldn't win in it. If I hadn't had the taste of like, I can do this even if I have to work longer, put in more time, whatever.
Like,
I think that
you're
that exposure to
capable.
is so important.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're capable,
Yeah, yeah.
and this goes back to the habit discussion we had last week. I love how these are tying together. I didn't intend that. But the belief that you can build these habits is one of the more important parts to actually being able to build the habit. And I'm going to use habit and subconscious executable interchangeably here because to me, those are both the same thing. And we've already established that becoming fast is building these subconscious executables, right? So you have to have the belief that you will actually be able to build those things that you're working on into a level of competency where you don't even think about it anymore, right?
Yep.
That you have to believe that you're capable of that. So these little taste of victories, these little wins that help the spirit, help that belief that will allow those habits to actually take root into the subconscious part of your brain. So yeah, I love that. I didn't think about that in when I originally brought this up, Tom. That's why I was excited to talk about this with you because I'm like Tom does this in a completely different perspective because I'm a glutton for pain and punishment and you're more human. So like I'm like but I've had those tastes too. Like those tastes of victory super important. If I was just getting
Yeah.
crushed from the beginning, I don't know. I think there's a part of me that like thought this was fun because I thought I was good at it. Even though I wasn't,
I totally
but
agree.
I thought I was.
Totally agree. Yep. That's what kept me that was like the second punch. Like the one punch was like how fun it was. And then the second hook came in. Is like, oh, and you're also a little good at it.
It's like,
Oh shit. I'm gonna do
"Uh-oh,
this for the next 15 years religiously.
this might be your thing."
Yep. Two other off track like scenarios I would put my little what do I call him? Blank Slate McGee in. I would give him Blake Slate. Oh, there's another good pun name. All right, so Blake Slate would also I would be monitoring this person all the time to understand where the natural skill kind of showed up versus uh the different things that they did. So for example, you throw this person into there are people out there who have done ice racing and dirt racing and asphalt racing with their own car that they do all three disciplines with and they also autocross that car and take it to a racetrack. Like there are those people are listening to this podcast right now. So
Yep.
they're doing all these different things. I'd be throwing Blake at the wall like that too. But like to me, I'm a grip asphalt driver, number one. And then if you take me into any other discipline, I have enough understanding to maybe be a little bit dangerous sometimes. But
But you
you have to like see what makes sense to the person and what excites the person too
you
when you're steering someone to be, the best driver they can. Go ahead.
exactly, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, you identify as a like a grip asphalt, like, road track driver because that's the thing that you like the most, right? There's other
Yeah.
people who they can't get enough of like rally or dirt oval or asphalt oval or whatever, right? There's people who can't get enough of go-karts. Like they might start there and then they're just like, yeah, I went and tried cars. Like that was dumb. Like I went back to karts, right? And then like that's their
Yeah.
thing. It doesn't matter. So like this blank slate driver, whatever their personality is, we're not molding them to be the thing that we want them to be. We're like molding them to be the best at whatever they would be the best at, right? That's kind of like where I'm sitting with that is whatever this blank slate driver is already established that they're going to do whatever it takes to be the best driver possible. But they have no idea about anything driving. They have just randomly decided that this is the thing that they want to be super good at. Uh whatever.
Like you.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Isn't that basically you?
That's kind of how. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Cuz I didn't really drive. I liked cars when I first started. I thought they were cool, but I was always too poor to speed, so I wouldn't really like hoon on the street. Cause like if I got a
Yeah,
ticket,
yeah.
like that was a really bad day. Like I wasn't paying some bills, right? So so I never like spat or like did any kind of like dangerous driving or anything like that, like on the street. So I don't think I really built any of those bad habits, but I liked video games and I played those and stuff like that. And I knew I liked racing. And then when I finally could go do it, I wasn't really hooked until I went to like a national event and like saw how good people could be at it. Like I've brought it up before.
Mm.
Like I saw David Marcus
Yeah,
go
yeah.
through a slalom and was like, oh crap, I don't even know how he did that. I need to figure that out. Right. And then that's when I was hooked. So w- I think we're just going to go on the assumption that our blank slate driver got hooked somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cause I do
agreed.
think you need to be hooked. Right. You can't just, there needs to be this like intrinsic like love or passion or burning desire to know more about the thing to like actually be elite at the thing. Like there needs to be there needs to be a level of obsession to actually build the required number of subconscious executables where they're all firing at the same time. Because if the obsession isn't there at the level that it needs to be, then you don't build enough that critical mass of subconscious executables to like really free up the brain when you're driving.
And you run out of RAM.
You run out of brain RAM. Seriously though.
So the other part that I would say is make sure that this person, has a basic at least basic understanding of physical exercise, diet, and, like, some mental performance tricks. For
Yeah.
example, I used to make sure that I couldn't see other results when I was too focused on other results. Just, like, a simple understanding of how to, like, keep a routine, both for, prepping yourself for events, but just, like, the understanding of basic, like, healthier choices. Because that was a big breakthrough for me between, like, perennial, maybe he'll win sometime, his first nationals, solid performer in the autocross, to like the following year when I got all that stuff under control is when I also started to figure out a lot with my driving. And that could be a complete coincidence, but I don't think it totally is. But
Yeah.
they're not related. It's not like my body was in better shape, therefore I was better driver. It was more cerebral than that.
Yeah. I think I think under this would be the harder part to teach. This like blank slate driver is like that proper competitive mindset where like this is a simplified version of it, but essentially you can only do your best. So just focus on whatever your best is, and wherever you end up in the results is where you end up. And can you make your best better? Yeah, you can. It's totally possible for all the things that we've already discussed just in the last, 57 minutes. But you're not going to do it right then, right there. So all you can do is your best, right? So I think for me, like that's a healthy competitive space to be in is just focusing on your own performance and wherever the cards fall, that's where they fall. Uh, that is way easier said than done when the pressure's on and it's
Yeah.
the heat of the moment and stuff like that. But I think the way you build up for our blank slate driver, the way you build that up over time is by repetition, is by after this competition, there's another one. Like, yeah, this is just one of the many that I've been doing. I think if you haven't competed in a long time and then all of a sudden you show up and there's a competition, then your nerves and your m- your subconscious executables for handling those nerves and putting your brain in the right spot to extract your best, it's going to be rusty. So this blank slate driver would be competing regularly
Yep.
with those small wins in mind, but then also wins that will check them, or not wins, losses that will check them and show them that there's still so much more to learn as they like go on their like Dunning Kruger curve of like ooh, am I getting really good at this? No, actually I'm not. There's still so much more to learn. And hopefully our blank slate driver is hungry to learn those things because that's going to be required.
This thought exercise had me going through some old autocross results just out of like reminiscing through the lens of what would I kind of tell my old self, or what would I keep, what would I get rid of.
Mhm.
And I pulled up, it was 2012 autocross, a national tour, and it was an event that I lost sorry, pause. It was a 4-day long event, but there were 2 and 2. The car I was supposed to drive on the second 2 days was broken, and I had to like scramble again the last minute, just a reason to drive because I was going to be there anyway. So I found this car that was theoretically competitive, never driven it before, never confident, never exposed to that kind of car before, and um, it was the first national autocross. Sorry if I hope this doesn't sound wrong, but the first national autocross in like years that I hadn't trophied at, and it was like a slap in the face because I drove so poorly. I didn't like I completely just bombed. I did a
It
bad
wasn't the
job,
car's
and
fault,
that
it wasn't
reminder.
anything's fault, it was yours.
No,
Yeah.
he almost won. My co-driver almost won. I just sucked, and it was the first time in a couple of years that I had just, like, blown it because I was used to, like, if I go to an autocross, I'm gonna trophy. Like, I was in that little phase of feeling like I deserved trophies almost, or, like, that was just where I was gonna
Yeah.
perform,
You
and
needed
I
to get
didn't prep
checked.
myself well or whatever,
Yeah.
and that was a check. Yeah, it was, so all that to say, your point of, like, you need to be exposed to that true scale competition every once in a while, and I think you need to have a couple of losses that remind you that you don't just get to do well.
Yeah, you actually
Like,
have
if
to
you're not
try.
focusing on the right stuff.
I think that's one thing that people, like, observing from the outside, like, that don't observe the iceberg, thing,
Yeah.
is, like, all they see what's on is on the surface. They don't see, like, all that sacrifice and hard work and stuff that goes in behind the scenes, whether it's wrenching on your car or like, going through the data, whatever it is, right? Everyone has their own journey. But the people who are winning and the people who continue to win, there is this behind the scenes effort that is tireless and it doesn't stop. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And that's the people that are up on the podiums. So, like,
Mhm.
that's that. And sometimes if you're on that podium and you might forget, like, all that work that got you into that position. But you know what? There's somebody else that's working to get on that podium. They go to the podium ceremony and they watch it.
They're coming. Here they come. They're
Yep, and
coming.
they're hungry, right? They're hungry because they wanna
Here
be
comes the
they wanna
train.
be up there. So, like, the people who are consistently winning, like, I'm thinking of, like, the Lewis Hamiltons when he, like, won that many years in a row, or even, like, you look, like, at different sports teams, because these sports leagues, they'll, like, set up the draft or whatever so they don't get as, like, good they don't get, like, the same level players from the draft that they do to try to, like, make it more even, but they still find ways to win. That's because the players and the coaches and the organization is, like, continually hungry, continually, like, putting in that work, and it's because they've fallen in love with the process that put them there in the first place. They haven't forgotten about the process at any point during that. So, this blank slate driver, I feel like, would need to experience some hardship to remind them that the process is the most important part and that they need to love the process. Because if they don't love the process, then they're not going to be in it for the long term. And in order to really be elite at the thing, you have to be in it for the long term.
Yeah. Or at least acknowledge that it's gonna take the time it's gonna take.
Yes, exactly. So
Um,
even with
the
unlimited
only
resources and unlimited time, it is still going to take time. There's
Yeah.
so many things to learn.
The only part of this conversation that made me have like a new thought during what we were talking through is karting, because we mentioned it a couple times.
Mhm.
Karting is a significant part of my driving, but not for the reason it is most people in motorsports. Like when you learn a kid karted, you know the picture. That's
Yeah.
not my exposure to it, but it was influential. I'd be curious to hear from someone who was from the karting world, because to me driving a kart is nothing like driving a car, in the sense of, not nothing, but you know what I mean. It doesn't drive like a car. It has almost no weight transfer. It has zero suspension travel. It has such a different scale of like space it drives in, power to weight and like grip level and all this. Even the tag carts that I've never I've driven a shifter a little. We've talked about that. I've driven tag carts on real tracks and stuff. And there's nothing about it to me that really matches the same as like driving cars.
They are a little weird.
But
You're still maximizing the tires though, which is kind of its
you
own
are.
thing.
So I was gonna say the last part of all that is everything I said is like contradictory, because it is still all the same thing. And there's a lot of people who learn driving in carts. And I want to know from I've never really gotten to like pick someone's brain in like the nuts and bolts of driving, why that is. That carts transfer for drivers in their like foundational years to get into other stuff. But I also see those drivers mostly working towards like formula cars, downforce cars, maybe like cars I'm not exposed to very often or ever, and maybe that's way more like driving a go-kart than I can appreciate. I don't really know.
Yeah, I wonder,
If it, so all that to say, anybody listening has experience with carts and you can kind of answer that question.
is Lena in here?
Um, is who?
Lena drove carts a lot when she was, younger.
Yeah, and Daniel said Kenton. I mean, Kenton's a good one too, but
Yeah.
just in general, I'm curious if that resonates with anybody else, especially that I don't think carts to me are not a foundational part of my Blake driver blank driver McGee.
I
But maybe
I
they
would
should be. I don't
actually,
know.
yeah, I would actually offer a counterpoint to that because they're exposed to competition. They're exposed to those like little glimpses of winning because they get you got the regionals and you got nationals and stuff like that, right? You're you're exposed to driving the tires. I do think the weight balance matters on some level, right? Because like the suspension operation of a cart is different because you need to get that inside rear tire unloaded for the thing to actually turn because it's a solid rear axle. So that inside rear tire can't have a full contact patch on the ground or like it literally won't turn. So like that is the reason why the tires and the way you move the weight on a cart is different, but besides that aspect, you're still manipulating the weight and how it influences the grip of the cart. Um,
Yeah.
so like the way you move the weight in a car is different, but I still think you're manipulating the weight to give the benefits to whatever contact patches the tires have, right? You're just doing it different in a car. Just like I drive cars way more than carts, but I hop in a cart and you just figure it out, right? You're like, "Oh, it likes, because it has so much caster."
Oh,
You're like, "I turn a little bit more and it lifts the inside and now it turns and now I'm at slip angle. Oh, that was too much slip angle." Right? Like, you're still able to, like, dial those things in.
you're talking indoor carts.
No, I'm talking like pit race, like, rental carts that are like, they have, like, the 8 horsepower Briggs& and Stratton
You
engine or
said so
whatever.
rental carts.
Oh, well, I thought you meant, like, indoor, like, not solid rear axle carts. They're
No, I'm talking
I've
like
driven big boy
I was
carts
gonna
too.
challenge you on when I drove, Larry's shifter cart and Ian's shifter cart, and
Yeah.
both times I was, like, out to lunch. Like, not even a little bit competent at what I was doing, I felt.
Okay. I I
That's
will
different than a rental cart where you're just, like,
that
kinda
is.
flat the whole time and you're playing with radiuses and stuff.
It it is, but only because there's a lot of subconscious executable potential on those carts, and your frontal lobe was overwhelmed with all the new things you had to do in that cart. But if you don't give me that
Don't
look,
talk about my frontal lobe that way.
Tom. It's no shame in saying your frontal lobe was overloaded. Okay, so Tom, your frontal lobe was overloaded, and it it made it where your bandwidth was limited. Like you felt like a noob again, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, okay. So, but if you took some of those differences, those like new things, all these new things you had to concentrate on, because let's be honest, guys, we're only really good at like focusing on like one thing at a time, right? Maybe two ish, but like not really. It's really one thing at a time, right? So if you're doing something that's requiring you to focus on all these different things at once, your bandwidth is shot, right? So there's a
Yeah,
lot of new things that you had to focus on in that cart purely just from the operation of it. But if you had a day to spend driving around a cart track where you could like start to build in some muscle memory and stuff like that, your other subconscious executables would actually be able to shine through and then you would have bandwidth again. But you had like a overload uh amount of things that lived in your frontal lobe. So you were slower because of it because
right.
because you didn't have additional bandwidth.
I would probably yeah, I'll give especially autocross plus kart is really not that's not really karting, so I should probably stop on that one. Andy in the chat said, "I raced karts for a long time. Karts don't teach you weight management, like, at all." Honestly, they probably teach you your own weight management more than the chassis management. But like DJ said, you learn maximize the tires, maximize the day, etcetera, etcetera. You have to be super smooth to be fast, and big fields of hyper competitive kids racing dads and racing dads prepare you for the mental pain of racing.
It
Dude, karting parents are wild. Ugh.
uh that's really
Yeah, those
interesting.
are kind of my thoughts on
When
it.
I drive a car, I do think about the weight, which is That's interesting that other people's, that drive carts, like, they just think about it completely differently.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've coached enough kids that have mostly karting experience driving in car they are now driving in cars. I'm coaching them in the car, and weight management is like a foreign planet to them. So that's, like, usually
gotcha.
the number 1 conversation.
Okay, okay, so that's where you're getting this from is, like, anytime you've ran into, like, a karting kid, you're like, "Okay, this is, like, a whole conversation to have."
But that also makes me able to speak to my exposure to what I've done and not to theirs at all. So
Yeah, I
I'd be
gotcha.
curious if anyone did a bunch of karting and then transitioned to cars or like tried other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what are we missing foundationally? Why did Blake Slate Driver, yeah, Blake Slate McGee need
This
kart training?
person's name is changing throughout, like, the entire
It is.
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Uh,
Did you have anything else on this?
no,
DJ's windshield time brainchild?
I'm thinking about it. Does anybody in the chat have anything to, like, throw in there that that maybe we haven't mentioned or whatever? Um,
There was a good little about how fast karts are. I think that's pretty legitimate. But I think that creates the same environment as autocross. You're covering a relatively small different distance at a relatively large amount of speed.
yeah, I think you need to be constantly challenging, like, what your, capability of bandwidth is too. So, that's something that we would be doing with, the Blake Slate driver as well. Uh But yeah, look, guys, if we missed anything in this conversation or you wanted to add to it, please. Uh, we have a Discord. Like, we would love to talk about it some more. Um, but yeah, that's I think that's how we would create our best driver possible. It's like a Madden build a character.
Or would you be shocked to learn that I've never done that?
Come on, Tom.
I've never You know what? Okay, when I would play Madden as a kid, the Green Bay Packers were my team because they had Lotus colors. That's how ingrained I was in racing game culture.
Because they had Lotus colors. I love that.
Dark green, yellow, hell yeah.
Yeah, Lotus. Yeah, there's not really any other race car colors in there, is there?
Honestly, sports teams have terrible colors. Race cars got way better, like liveries, colors, team schemes.
Mhm.
Racing's where it's
Yeah,
at.
I'm trying to think of some other, racing liveries that are copied with, like, sports uniforms, but I can't think of any. If you guys think of any, come hang out with us in the Discord, link in, the description. Alright, do we wanna answer a question and then call it?
Yeah, I got an interesting one. Hit the button.
Oh, yep, here it is. Emails.
All right, this one's from Ross. I don't think we answered this one. Cut me off if we did. Is sentimental value considered in reasonably high
We
regard
did.
in your decision to keep a car? We did this one?
Yeah.
Dang it.
You're
I
like,
thought it
"Take it."
sounded so good that we must have done it.
Sorry, Ross.
Um, you want to talk about autocross or do you want to talk about um other questions do we have?
We could just
Scrolling
look at the
around. Sorry
pin.
guys, we weren't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
prepared.
Oh, no. Uh,
Oh, I found another different one. Do you want to they're
wait,
both about code
hold on,
writing, but this one's from Danny Corliss.
did we answer Randy's, like, best roadmap for best driver versus best racer?
Oh, we didn't. All right, Andy, you're the question. The question is there a different roadmap for the best driver versus the best racer? Yeah, honestly, I think the difference is literally what we were just talking about. You have to swap out autocross and karting.
Yeah.
One of them, I think they're like the same building block. This is a radical theory, kind of the same building block, but then they're like interchangeable. One teaches you racecraft way faster, one teaches you like weight driving dynamic way faster.
What if they did both at the same
Dude, I
time, though?
solved it.
What if they did both at the same time?
That's what it is. Okay, so sim racing also slots itself in there because you can get racecraft in sim racing
Mhm.
too. Don't you agree?
Yeah. That's where
I
I
would do
learned
my
all mine.
racecraft in sim racing before I did my racecraft in karting.
I think I would too, because karting racecraft is a little divey.
Dirty.
Yeah.
And it's also expensive. Like sim racing is free.
Yeah,
Well,
for the most part.
it costs a set of tires a year, basically. No, I
So,
think okay. What were your challenges when you went from from non-road race, non-wheel to wheel competition to wheel to wheel.
Well, so I
Did you
was
have
sim
many?
racing a bunch when I was like 5,000-ish I rating by the time I like did my first wheel to wheel race. So like in terms of like the racecraft, I think I was pretty ahead of the game as far as like the racecraft stuff. Like I feel like I've already seen it all by the time I did my first race. Uh
That's
I'm
how I felt too because of all the sim racing I did.
yeah, I don't the thing is when I first started sim racing, I was just having so much fun doing it. I don't And I think this is just the way human brains work. I don't remember all the dumb shit I did. I don't know, like, I don't know what that learning curve was like. I can't think back on it.
What do you mean?
Like, all the times I, like, killed somebody and, like, thought it was their fault when it was 100% my fault, you know what
Oh,
I mean?
yeah, I know what you mean. So to me, that's where iRacing falls short because I came up when I've talked about race to play and R Factor and all this like pre iRacing sim culture, it was not anonymous. And I know everyone's names are real in iRacing, but it's still anonymous. Versus this, like I got kicked out of a league when I was like 13 years old because I was crashing people too much. And these like grown ass adults had to like come on the forum and PM me and say like, "Hey,
"Hey, you're
you're
banned."
not welcome in our league anymore because you've crashed into too many people." And that was like a pretty big reality check. Or they said a 1 year ban. I had to wait to come back a year. So when I was 14, I walked my happy ass back in the door and I had like learned my lesson, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that that's where iRacing falls short. So if you're taking this stuff seriously, doing it with a league of people that hold you accountable is good. But honestly, even in iRacing now, like the Grid Life iRacers is a mess,
Yeah,
disaster. Most
but
of my
that's just
experience with
because
like most casual groups is a disaster.
they don't have support. There's plenty of leagues out there that, like, actually, like, pass out penalties or whatever.
Yeah, do those.
But then
Run
also
sim racing with Lizard Brains and those other people.
this is what I would challenge you is if you ever have contact with another car in sim racing, don't say anything on the mic, go watch it.
Yeah.
Was there a way for you to avoid that? Like, cuz normally contact takes 2 people to make a mistake for like that contact to happen. So, if you had contact, it is a very very slim chance that you had 0 to play in it, right? So, I would go watch the replay and try to envision it of something that you could have done differently that wouldn't have resulted in either that person's race being ruined or your race being ruined. There was some
Yeah.
change that you could have made that would have saved your race. So that's like the challenge I would throw out there. I realized from this question that we didn't actually answer one of the more important parts, which was like the business side of racing. How would you prepare So, like, best driver,
Oh,
cool. You're the fastest driver in the world, but you're not marketable. You're not like if like the best racer in the world has to also have like the business side of them, right?
yep.
So, like, do you just have them live in the space and you constantly tell them to be the nicest person possible to like every person they meet because you like one, that's how you should be just anyways. But also, like, you don't know what doors are gonna open when
Yeah.
every single person you meet matters.
My boilerplate answer to that is always go to as many events as possible, meet as many people as you can while you're there, and be as nice to everyone as you should be. Like those are the simplest things. The only other part I wrote down since we had the theoretical, like unlimited time and unlimited budget, if I'm in a scenario where I can pay for opportunities or pay for experiences that are going to kind of further theoretically my exposure or my, wheelhouse, I would only pay for the opportunities and things in an environment that I already have pretty comprehensive understanding of. So that means everything from if you want to rent a seat with a champ car team, you should have probably gone to a champ car race, talked to some champ car people. You should understand like you shouldn't just rent a champ car seat and show up and be like, "What do I do?" Like if you're paying for that,
Yeah.
make sure that it's a place that you can get value out of, and that'll go all the way to the top of like if you want to take a bunch of money and do like a NASCAR Cup one off and like spend your money on it. Make sure that you have set yourself up for the potential for success, whatever amount you're spending on whatever you're trying to do. That was kind of the only like major business thing that I did in my thoughts because to me, once you're a renter, you're always a renter. So no matter what environment you're in, remember that. But also you can blow a lot of money in racing really quickly for amounts of money that will take you decades
Hell
at different
yeah.
levels for the same payoff.
Oh,
As
yeah.
sad as that sounds, like what could I have taken my let's see, Honda spent $100,000 on me 1 year. I know that through a roundabout way. Like that was their for me to race the car. That's what they put in. And I fought them a little bit on what we did because I thought that I could make that last 3 years, and they wanted to do the thing that would do one. And I ended up just like kind of letting it be. But I was like, I don't care about going up fast. I want to make this last as long as I can, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a long, a complicated way to say, like, be smart with your money and
Okay.
be nice to people.
Alright.
Have you had any breakthrough moments in your racing professional and like I navigated that right or wrong, or I created that opportunity because I'm smart?
Honestly, I think this is, like, where I'm weakest is in that sense, so, uh, I think this is probably
No, I
the
disagree actually. I
Oh,
just
yeah?
thought of a counterpoint.
What's that?
You're so genuine and eager in making it a two-way street. Everybody you worked with has gotten more value out of you than they could probably ever put money on through your willingness to like help them and like find your place to bring value. That's what I think
Okay.
you're strong at.
Alright. I'll agree with you there, and I think that's because it's, like, a conscious effort on my part
Yeah.
to blast them in the face with value is kind of what I'm like, that's, like, what I'm aiming to do. Because 1,
So DJ, he shows up and he whips out his metaphorical shotgun and he goes, "I'm sorry, I'm poor,
my
but here's some help."
yeah,
Already fired.
it's actually a t-shirt cannon, and I just freaking start blasting you with it, all this
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
But really it's I think it comes from a place in my heart where I know how lucky I am to just get to drive, other people's stuff. So, like, I feel like there's, like, this part of me that's like, "Please find value in this because this is so valuable to me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So there's another thing you can do if you're in the boat of a lot of us where you can create value in places that maybe are overlooked. Dude, my ASM lunch cooking and dinner cooking was some of my like most valuable moments, I think.
it probably was. They was always
Like I can do
delicious.
some coaching and I can hang out and I play some good music, but if I cook a meal, like that's worth being there for.
Yep, yeah. Honestly, though, so this weekend, I made a new friend, his name is Ted. He was hanging out with Luke McGrew, and Ted was killing it with the trackside food. Tom, look, you made some great trackside food. He was at like, it was some of the best food. Like, these burgers, I don't know what he did with
Ooh,
them, but these burgers were amazing, and then he made, like, pork belly that was, like, sweet, and I don't like sweet food, but, like, this was, like, sweet in just the right way, and it was also, like, kinda spicy, and oh my god, Tom, it was so he had a sous vide that he was, like, cooking, like, he had bags of rice, and he was, like, warming
ooh,
rice
yep.
up in it, and we had, like
That's a professional.
oh, dude, he was, like, kitted out. Like, he was there to cook food. There was people from, like, all over the Chin Track Days organization that was stopping by Luke's trailer to get food from Ted because Ted was actually famous about making food. Yeah.
I need to meet this guy.
Ted was cool.
Maybe I have. I don't know.
Ted
Good deal.
Ted was pretty cool. So, yeah, I think that basically wraps it up, Tom.
That was a great conversation that came out of your windshield time. What are you doing this weekend?
Um,
Two auto crossing?
I'm not entirely sure. Me and Christine got bad news from the vet this weekend that, our oldest cat
Mm,
is sick. Uh, she was
mm,
acting
sorry.
weird, and we found they did an X-ray, and they found a mass in her stomach, and, like, not in her stomach, like, in her gut, and we might be saying I don't know how much longer she has. She's not feeling really well right now because the mass is causing, like, blockage. Um, so, like, there's, like, a bunch of uh, constipation medicine and, like, anti-nausea because it's making her nauseous as well. So we're hoping that once we get those things in check, we'll actually get, like, a idea of what the quality of life will be. And then we're going to see a specialist tomorrow to see, like, can it be removed? Will it add life to her, or like maybe we should start getting ready to say goodbye to, our 15-year-old cat. And I've known the cat for 11 years, and Christine's known it for basically all 15. And this cat is like, it, it's one of our fur babies. She'll come when you call her name. Um, she'll We literally tested it out once. We're like, will this cat ever be sick of you petting her? And she's not. I pet her for like about 45 minutes straight, and she was still rolling around on the ground, like trying to get pets. Like,
Yeah.
it's Kitty. That's the one that's not doing so well. So I the tentative plan is that gonna go to Bristol to autocross with Peter. Me and Christine were gonna go hike, but Christine's gonna bite the bullet and stay home with the sick kitty. But if for some reason we have to say goodbye before that, then I'm obviously not going anywhere. So that's why my
Yeah.
plans are a little tentative. Sorry to like bring like our sadness with you guys, but like we tell you guys everything that's going on with our lives. So like that's what's been going on the last 2 days here.
Poor kitty.
Yeah, and it just sucks. Like, what mostly sucks about it is like we're just reminded of our own mortality, like that we're not here forever, and that this is inevitability for all of us, and that freaking sucks. Uh, so more of a reason to go do the things you want to do, and don't wait for tomorrow. So that's
Amen.
uh that's kind of where we're at with that. But hopefully, I'm going to an autocross event in Bristol.
Cool. Did you find a ride, or is Peter gonna go now?
Peter's going. He's actually going to Charlotte in Saturday and Bristol on Sunday. So Peter's going on a little
What a
tour this
guy.
weekend. Yeah, yeah. Peter Schnorr.
Alright, good for him.
Yeah, too many Peters.
Yep. Oh, yeah. You're, FRS Peter. GRD6 Peter, sorry. And then this weekend, I was mostly planning on going to NCM with ASM. They were going for the, binge track day, but I haven't actually checked in with them that they're still going, so I need to do that.
Okay.
And if they don't go, I probably won't go because I'm obviously going without a car, but, like, if I go without anybody I know and without a car, that's, like, doubly 7 hours drive, I don't know.
I could pick you up on the way to Bristol. You want to hang out with me for a
We could,
Saturday
but
evening
let me
and
figure out
Sunday?
my, let me figure out my NCM plans first because I do wanna go to the track day with them if they're all still going, but
Okay. Well, I could be a
outside of
backup.
that,
If if I do go, I could definitely be your backup.
deal. And outside of that, I'm on my 3rd book.
Uh-oh.
I'm partway through Animal Farm,
Oh, I should
like the
read
big
that
one.
too. Well, hold on. So remember one of my 2025 goals was to read books with Christine. Right now we're doing Three Body Problem, and the book's kind of dense, and it's a little I actually have to concentrate on it like as I'm like listening to it. Um
Yeah.
so it's taking me a little bit to get through. I did know it's a Netflix show, Ito, thank you. But like all books, the book's probably better. So I'm trying to get through the book first. I don't want to ruin the book with the I heard the show's pretty good. So right now it's I'm like a fourth or third of the way through the book. Christine's like almost done with it. She's crushing me. So hopefully I do get some windshield time this weekend so I can like catch up on the book a little bit.
Nice. We'll keep you informed on book club if there's anything that applies.
Yeah.
But I think that was a good episode.
Yep. Me too. Thanks for participating, Tom, and thanks for everyone for joining me. I had a nice crowd today.
Oh, yeah, we do. Friends?
Tom just realizes he's like, "Oh shoot, now I'm nervous." All right. You want to do the outro, Tom?
Yep.
All right.
I'm
Thank you,
always
everyone.
curious. I don't really know if people listen all the way to the end, but I have a top tip. Our merch is on sale for 15% off until the 11th of March. I love your hair. Hope you win.